John Gielgud, in his own words. BBC Radio Archive interview, dated 1st of January, 1941.
Well, first of all, it's something of a privilege to be able to act at all under these conditions, and I think each one of the company here feels the same way about it. The difficulty is that life in London lately has become even more dramatic than anything you're likely to see or hear on the stage.
Something of a paradox. I suppose it might be called a frontline theatre at the moment. But all those people I saw sitting in the queue this afternoon outside, they didn't seem to mind the thought of a raid happening at any moment.
No, they've got like that, haven't they? And they're just the same every day. But of course we don't play any more at night.
Anyhow, the war doesn't seem to make much difference.
No, not really.
Do you get many soldiers coming into the show?
Yes, we've had a lot of men from all the different forces. And they seem to enjoy the show more in a real theatre than the ones when they're herded together in the camp. For one thing, I expect they like it better because they're able to bring their girls with them.
I bet they do.
But I expect it's the atmosphere, really, the illusion of a real theatre which gets them. When one gives shows to the troops, we always try to take as much as we can of the trappings of the theatre along with us, the costumes and the lighting and so on.
Great Acting. BBC Television, 12th of February, 1966.
It was, of course, in Chekhov that you really first established yourself as an actor, wasn't it?
Well, I think it was the first part, the part of Trofimov and the Cherry Orchard was the first time I ever went on the stage and felt perhaps I could act. Before that, I felt I could exhibit myself to some extent, and I rather enjoyed the business of going to the theatre and walking about on the stage, and something to do with my instincts told me that I wanted to have something to do with the theatre. But really I wanted to design scenery, and I wanted to have something to do with the lighting and the movement of plays, which is what I admired most when I was a boy. And I think this really meant that I wanted to be a director, which since I've had the luck to become, as well as an actor. Acting to me is a responsibility and a great difficulty, whereas the feeling of work in the theatre has always been the easiest and most happy part of my life.
But is it fair to say that your attitude to the theatre and your persona as an actor has always been a romantic one?
I suppose it is true that. I always used it as an escape, I think. I'm a terrible escapist in life. And to go to a theatre and shut myself up in a dressing room and come out as somebody else and live a mimic life does give me pleasure, and I suppose always has done. I suppose all children dress up and play games, but my brothers and sister and I were tremendously theatrically minded in that way in our nursery days and in our school days even. I was always living in some sort of fantasy world.
Was the strong Teddy influence in your family, did it make it certain, really, that you were bound to be something to do with the theatre?
I suppose it must have been. I was enormously englamoured by my family, particularly the ones who were acting still when I was a boy. And my parents didn't encourage this very much, although they were naturally very proud of it too. My mother was the theatrical one because she was a Terry, but my father, who was partly Polish, had a curious mixture of practical middle-class English realism mixed with a certain romantic panache.
How did you prepare for your stage work in the theatre?
I went to 2 dramatic schools, and my cousin Phyllis Nielsen Terry gave me a job as assistant stage manager and understudy in a tour she was doing of a play she'd played in London, and we did a 18 or 20 weeks tour of all the provincial cities. But one of the actors said, you ought to really go to one of the dramatic schools. And I went, before this I had been at Lady Benson's school for about a year, and after I came back from that first tour, I went to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art School, and I was there for about a year, I think, also. And from that, Nigel Playfair gave me a job in the insect play, in which I was terribly bad. And it was rather wonderful to be with men like Playfair and J.B. Fagan, who I afterwards worked with at Oxford, because they were wonderful talent spotters. And at that time, I know I must have been very, very clumsy and conceited and silly and vain. And they kind of made one feel one had something, although they didn't spoil one. They didn't make you feel...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?